Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. This week, we have the master magician himself. Uh, he's known for Box of Wonders. He's also a filmmaker. He's been on stage with Penn and Teller. We got Derek Selinger. Welcome to the show, Derek.
Thanks for having me, LaTroy. Wonderful to be with you.
All right, cool. So Derek, like you said, you're a master magician. From what I hear, you came out the womb with a miraculous story, tied to your mother getting electrocuted. Like, dig into that for us.
Yeah, for sure. It really is a defining story in my life. My mom told me this story when I was 8 years old. And like a lot of kids, I was having a bit of a tough time in school. I was being bullied a bit. I had a speech impediment. I had difficulty forming words, so I was going to speech class, and as well, I have a bit of like stress-induced dyslexia. So I was just like, I was struggling. And my mom saw this, and so she sat me down one day, poured me a glass of milk, and said, "I need to tell you something." She said, "You're special." Now, all moms are supposed to say that. They're all supposed to say you're special. But she said, "You're special." And I mean that, and let me tell you why. She said, "When I was pregnant with you, I was electrocuted." The technical term is shocked because she didn't die. But she grabbed 220 volts of live electricity, the big plug behind the stove, and it almost killed her. She was rushed to the hospital. And in the hospital, the doctor said, "We think you're going to be okay, but we don't know about your baby." To which she said, "What?" This was a shock to her. The second shock to her that day. They're like, "Yeah, you are pregnant, but this is the first trimester. It's the most vulnerable time for the fetus. So we don't think it's going to survive. We highly recommend you terminate the pregnancy. And because if this baby continues and it does survive, it will most certainly not be normal." Which is true. I am not normal in any way, which is totally true. Fortunately, my mom carried me to term, and I was born, and I seemed to like have all my fingers and toes and seemed to be all there. However, I will tell you that she took me to an intelligence test when I was like 10 months old or something like that, and I scored 0%. Like I literally just stared at the nurses. I did nothing they wanted me to do. So she was a little worried, but she told me this story at 8, and I remember the day, and I had two distinct thoughts. The first thought is that I have superpowers, right? Like I mean, this is like any superhero origin story. Like Spider-Man gets bit by a spider, a radioactive spider. I get zapped in the womb. Like I have to have some kind of superpower. I totally went upstairs later that day and tried to jump off the bed like 100 times trying to fly until my dad told me to stop. And that was my first thought. I've got to have superpowers. The second thought I had at 8, and this is really a profound thought for an 8-year-old. The second thought is, my life's a gift. The fact that I'm alive today is a miracle. It's stupendous. It's miraculous. It's amazing. And I have an opportunity to make the most out of life. Like, how awesome is that? And it really changed my outlook on life and the way that I approach life. And the thing I like to tell people is, like, hopefully you've not been, electrocuted in vitro or another, horrible near-death experience. But the same fact is true for us all. For you, like, your life's a gift. The fact that you're alive today is amazing. What an opportunity we all have.
Right. All right. So, in realizing those superpowers and experimenting, trying to jump off the roof, when did you hone in on that exact superpower that you do possess?
Yeah, the magic. Well, an interesting thing about performance magic is it's a multidisciplinary art form. Like, when you first get started, you do a little trick for your friends and they laugh, and that's kind of it. But when you start getting into taking it very seriously as a performance art, it involves speechcraft. It involves movement. Like I've taken dance. I've learned how to do improv. Like all of these different um, disciplines all lead into it. So throughout my adolescence, I was involved in a lot of different things that gave me skills that ended up allowing me to do this professionally. Like I did theater and I did speech and I played music and I learned how to play music and all of those types of things. And I played sport. Like I actually, one of my jobs before I did magic full time is I coached college basketball and loved it. So like all of these different things I was involved in, but one of them was magic. One of them was performing magic and magic tricks. And I got to be honest with you, LaTroy, I probably first started learning magic tricks because I wanted to meet girls. And I was an awkward kid, right?
Right.
So it broke the ice. It allowed me like to have something to have a conversation um, with a girl. And it didn't work amazing, but it was a cool thing to do. And my family kind of was like, oh, that's kind of neat. I'd do some tricks and I didn't know a lot, but I knew a bit. It wasn't until I was in university that I met another magician who was very, very good. And I was watching him and I'm like, wow, this guy's doing miracles, right? Like, this is crazy. Like he's doing crazy stuff. How do I do that? I went up to him like, how do I learn to do what you do?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, books. He said, books. And he gave me a book and he told me which books to start buying. And that's what I started to do. I started to buy these books and started to dig into them and learn very more difficult, it was long before the internet, more difficult magic and started to get good at it.
Uh-huh. What was the first trick that you
Very
mastered?
first, the very first trick I did as a kid was like um, the glass through the table where you push the glass through the table. It's like this visual trick I learned out of, I don't know, a magazine. And then I learned some rope tricks from the Boy Scout manual, and those seemed to be good. But I'll tell you about my big break. This was my big break. And I was a hobbyist, right? I did
Mm-hmm.
just for fun. Well, there was a Vegas headliner that came to the city nearby. And I went to a show. I got tickets to a show and drove. It was like 7 hours. So nearby, I lived in Canada. Nearby is like 7 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so I drove to a show, went to a show. And the next day he had a masterclass, a teaching session for local magicians, right? You spend $100, you go and you hang out with them. Well, I didn't have the money, but I found it. And I went to this class. And I got there early before anybody else. And it was a long boardroom. And I put the most comfortable chair at the head of the table. And I sat next to it. And I told everybody, that's where Jeff is going to sit. And just wouldn't let anybody sit at the head of the table. And sure enough, he came in and he sat at the head of the table. And he was a few minutes early too. So he turned to me and says, what kind of magic do you perform? I said, oh, just like close up, like card tricks and stuff. He's like, well, show me something. Oh my gosh. So I very nervously performed a classic piece of magic. And he watched. He was very gracious. And he gave me a couple pointers. And then he taught his class. And at the end, he said, Derek, I think you need to come to Las Vegas and study with me. And that was the moment. That was the break. This invitation to go to Las Vegas to start to learn from one of the masters in the art of magic. And I started doing that every few months. And under his guidance, my career really took off.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess for those that, are interested in becoming magicians,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of take us behind the scenes. Like, um, I'm sure there's no school for it. So is that the path that's of least resistance is learning directly under the tutelage of an expert, or like how can someone get into being a master magician?
Yeah, you want the phone number to Hogwarts, do you? Dumbledore and I are on a first name basis. Well, actually, there are kind of schools of magic, which are like magic type academies
Mm-hmm.
teaching. They're not formalized like a university, but they're they're kind of organized. But to your question, yes, the best way is to find a master of the art and learn under them. All of the greats in time immemorial have learned under a master. You go all the way back through the last 200 years. The magician that has come up and done well has spent time with greats. Like there's a really famous Canadian magician that was huge in the 70s named Doug Henning. He had a huge Broadway show. And what he did is he convinced the Canadian government to give him a grant to go to the Magic Castle in Hollywood, which is one of the last supper clubs like in North America, true supper clubs. And he went there to learn from another magician named Di Vernon, who was a great. And so like he understood that in order to learn to be the best, you need to hang out with the best. So yes, that when you want to get to kind of the really upper levels, that's what you need to do. But to start, you don't need to do that. I still really believe starting with books. I do. Like I understand that there's a lot of guys exposing magic tricks on the internet. You could go learn a magic trick on the internet, but the better thing would be like there's magic clubs in every town. Like every major city has a magic club with the International Brotherhood of Magicians or the Society of American Magicians. Like seek those guys out. And the reason you want to be a part of, be in community is those guys will point you to the tricks that are good. Mm-hmm. You could go and learn garbage online or send away for some trick and get it and go, well, what the heck is this? This is a cheesy prop. I don't know how to make it look good. But if you hang out with other magicians that perform and know how to do the stuff, they're going to be able to give you pointers and tips. Just like anything else, you're not going to learn the box on your own. You're going to go to club to box. You're not going to learn to play basketball in a vacuum. You're going to go play with people at the park. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So, like on average, how long does it take you to, I guess, be comfortable enough to try a trick on stage? Like how much behind the scenes work do you have to put in?
Yeah, that's an excellent question because it changes. Mm-hmm. Early in my career, it would take like forever because, a good way to think about it is anybody that's played a musical instrument. When you first start playing a musical instrument, learning a song is like hard. But when you get good, you could pick something up pretty fast and you could get proficient. Now, the difference between performing for a small group of people to try it and performing on stage, those are two different things, right? Like if I'm putting it in my professional production, it has to be polished. I'm not throwing something out there, right? I literally think through every breath of a performance, every moment, every nuance, every moment that somebody might have a particular reaction. I think through that all. And for it to reach the stage, or my new show, Box of Wonders, which is 12 people around the table, to reach those places, I have to make sure that it's polished. So that means, I'm performing it for people I know, like family and friends, but I'll also, like the street magic stuff, you remember that was really popular with David Blaine and that stuff. I do it all the time. I just don't record it. I should probably record it more. But the reason I do it is I'll go literally down the street and the guy selling flowers, I'll go perform some magic for that guy at 3 p.m. because I'm working on it and I need to see his reaction and like get over my nerves and try it. So I do that a lot and rep it. I rep it a lot. And then when it's polished, I'll put it into a show.
Okay, cool. All right, so you just mentioned Box of Wonders. It's an intimate experience. You have, what did you say, 12 people with you. Just talk about how you came up with the concept and how you adjust it based on the size of the crowd.
Yeah, that's again another wonderful question. I was performing a large stage show, so my theaters were like 300 to 800 people average. I performed at Penteller's Foolis. I performed in arenas for 18,000 people. So that's a very different energy right? When you have that many people in a space and you're doing a grand piece of illusion, or you're pushing all this energy to the back of a room. That's such a different feeling than Box of Wonders. What happened was, well, COVID happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all had this disaster, and it crushed me because I had a tour like planned. It was all booked, and COVID happens, and so I lose all my venue deposits, all my marketing, all that, and then all the income from this tour. And I'm sitting there going, what do I do now? Well, how do I stay creative? At the time, we didn't know if we'd ever, like, it felt like we'll never come back. That's what it felt like. So I started thinking about, well, what can I do that's manageable? And what I realized is that there's something amazing about performing for a smaller group. Like 12 people sitting around a table where I could look in each person's eyes and connect with them and know their name allows the magic to come to life in a far different way than sitting in a huge room with 500 people. And as I started to work on the show, I fell in love with it. And I really wanted to create an experience where I transported these 12 people to an entirely different place. So I worked on it very, very hard. And when we launched it, it crushed. Like, it's the best thing I've ever performed. I'm literally getting feedback, like people saying, like, this show changed my life, which is a tremendous thing for somebody to say to you as an artist. But it's because we were able to really shift the perspective on life and memory and each other and community and these types of things. So this show, we've been performing it literally in people's homes. It's not a cheap show. It's a fairly costly show per person, but at the same time, the experience is literally, like, I'm literally the only person in the world doing this. And I know that for a fact. And I've worked with the masters of the art to perfect it. And it is just, it's so good. And I love doing it so much. It's my favorite thing ever. I'll still perform on stage because it's still fun. But my passion is this Box of Wonders show for sure.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that if you had a preference between the intimate shows and performing in a stadium.
There's advantages to both, right? Like the wall of sound from a big audience, that when people cheer, when you have a huge room, oh man, is that a rush? You want to talk about something that's addicting. Woo, that is addicting. But I have to say that the rush of seeing someone directly in front of you have a transformative experience in their life, where they see the world different because of what you just performed and said, and you're watching, like, that's the magic I experience now. I experience the magic in my audience. Right? When my audience has this moment where they see, it's like they become kids again. They it's so amazing. That's a far more addictive thing for me than the big audience, right? Seeing that happen.
Yeah. Do you ever amaze yourself?
Oh, is that a good question? Do I amaze myself? How did I do that? Oh my God. Yeah. I think that the moments that I have wonder with my work is when a bit of inspiration comes and I'm able to make something relevant for an audience member in a way that is almost otherly. Like, I'm able to say things in a way that really connects with them. And that's, a combination of becoming good at my job, but also being an intuitive person, being able to read people and see what they need to really have an experience and able to deliver to them. I'm amazed sometimes when that happens, not because I think highly of myself, but just because it feels like magic to me.
Right. Cool. All right. So, like I said, you've been on stages all around the world. Paris, New York.
Yep.
Is there a memorable moment from one of those performances where either you were clicking on all cylinders or it was just a disaster?
Right. How long do you have? I've got so many stories, man. So many stories. Okay, I'll I'll give you a couple cool stories. Okay, one was in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
I was performing on this television show, and first of all, I didn't realize how big of a deal this TV show was. It was called Le Grand Cabaret, and it was this guy named Patrick Sebastian. And like Patrick Sebastian was like a mega star. It'd be like David Letterman back in the day, or Jimmy Fallon, a really really well known dude. And when I got into the car to go to the television studio, the cabbie was asking me what I was doing going there, and I told him I'm performing on a show with Patrick Sebastian. The guy almost drove off the road. Like he was like, "What?" And he literally pulls over on the side of the freaking highway to take pictures with me, right? Like because this was such a big. So that was kind of cool. That was a neat moment. But uh, at that show was almost a disaster in two ways. The first is the airline lost my main bag. I would like my main bag, the most important bag. They lost it. So I get to the studio and I don't have my bag. And I tell the producer, like, my main bag isn't here. They're like, okay, we'll just rehearse and trust it'll come tonight or tomorrow. Well, the next morning I get up, it's still not there.
Mm-hmm.
So I go meet the producer, and the producer's like, well, we got to change your act then. So I literally rewrite my act, cut it in half, and we redo my music, choreography, everything. So I only do half the stuff I had with me. The other half I couldn't perform. And that was nerve wracking. Okay. And that was almost the first disaster. And I'll tell you about the outcome in a second. But the second of the disaster, okay, dude, I'm waiting. I'm waiting in the wings to go on stage, and I almost got run over by a mini car with 2,000-pound sea lions. That sounds like what? I am not kidding you. Okay. The act before me was this like a Mini Cooper with 2,000-pound sea lions in it that danced to the Blues Brothers song. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And right before I go on stage, there was a ramp that came off stage, and this thing comes rolling off the ramp. Nobody warns me. I'm going up the ramp to get ready to perform. And this thing is barreling towards me, and I get out of the way just in time. I almost got run over by a mini car with 2,000 pounds of sea lion, and that would have been quite the story to tell my mother. So that was almost a disaster. Anyway, I get on stage at this show, and it went great. My performance went great. And I came off that stage so jacked because, like, this was a test. This was a professional test. Could I stand up to half of my stuff not showing up and still be a pro and still do a good job? And I did. I remember going to my dressing room so jacked, and I sat down, and what did I hear? Knock on my dressing room door. I opened the door, and there's my bag. They delivered my bag immediately after walking off stage. So that was tremendous. And a recent memory was in New York City. We debuted the American debut for Box of Wonders was in New York, down in Midtown, and we were at a beautiful little venue, 12 people around a table in the back garden of this restaurant. And I mean, I was pretty nervous. Like every time I perform in New York City, I'm a little nervous. Like that's the town, the old adage, you make it here, you make it anywhere. That's true. And New York audiences are tough because they've seen everything. They've gone to millions of Broadway shows. Shoot, man, you walk out on the street in New York City, it's a show, right? So I was nervous, and I performed. And the coolest thing happened, because Box of Wonders, everybody's sitting at a table. It's not designed for people to give you a standing ovation. But these people gave me a standing ovation. They stood up. And I remember sitting at the head of the table, and I see these people standing and applauding. And it felt like I was looking down the streets in Manhattan at the tall buildings. It was just, it was a really moving moment for me as an artist, because I really felt like yeah, this show is landing. It's made it here. And it gave me such confidence to continue doing it.
Right. So, I mean, not only, I guess, excelling in, the city that never sleeps, but
Mm.
um, just talk about also the importance of being able to do it in front of legends like Penn and
Oh, yeah.
Teller. Um,
Yeah.
I guess that would be another example of if I can make it here, I can make it anywhere, is doing it in front of legends like that.
It's so true, man. It's so true. Early in my career, like I told you about Jeff McBride is the master's name, and his teacher was Eugene Berger. These were two of the guys that really are like legends in the art and know so much about magic. And early in my career, I sat under their tutelage. I went to Las Vegas and went to Jeff's house and hung out with him and Eugene Berger and talked about and worked on magic. And that started this process of performing in front of legends. In their house, I met guys like Jonathan Pendragon, Lance Burton, Mac King, like these big stars in the art. And they would have me, this little old me, perform for them. And that started like getting me confident in front of these guys, because all these guys are so gracious. Like the guys at the top are really, really kind. And they were so kind to give me pointers and help me. And then when I competed, magicians have competitions. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, it's like expecto patronum. No, just kidding. We have these competitions, and I won the People's Choice Award at the World Championships many years ago. And again, that room was filled with legends, and a legend in the art named Peter Ravine became a good friend of mine. And Ravine was a good performer, but he was also Lance Burton's manager and got Lance the $100 million deal at the Monte Carlo. Anyway, he became my friend and a bit of an advisor. So that helped my confidence as well. And then a few years ago, as you mentioned, Penn and Teller, going on their show, being invited to go on their show is a tremendous honor, as you can imagine. There's a lot of guys that want to go on there to showcase my original thoughts and work. And the same thing, those guys were so gracious and kind to me. Right after I performed, they raced backstage and like shook my hand and like, man, we loved what you did. That's the way to do danger magic. And this is what we loved about it. And they were just so generous with their compliments. And again, it's just another one of those little moments that makes you go, yeah, okay, I'm good at this. I'm going to keep going.
Uh-huh. All right. So you mentioned at the start of the interview, you also had a background in coaching college basketball, and you're also a filmmaker. Just talk about how excelling in those areas helps your storytelling and your show.
I really am a believer that winners win. And if you want to do something in another space, let's say you have a dream to be a producer or be an artist in some way, and you're doing a job or in a career that you don't love, I really believe you need to still win at that thing. Because when you win at the thing that you have to do, you're going to be prepared to win at the thing you want to do. I really believe that. My first career was in higher education, and part of that job was coaching basketball. And I played basketball in college, and this is small college basketball, but being able to do that job taught me about communicating clearly and motivating people. And that definitely has helped me as an artist. Also, I would perform magic for my players all the time, right? Like we'd be on the bus or, whatever. I literally broke out tricks at halftime, to break the ice and chill the guys out, And I became a better magician as a result of that as well. Filmmaking, I fell into that because I wanted to create promo material for myself. And this is like in the early 2000s, long before YouTube or any of that stuff. long before the phones being so brilliant now. So I originally hired somebody to do promo videos for me, but they were expensive, like really costly. So I'm like, I got to learn how to do this if I want to do the volume of material I want to do. So I bought a camera and I took classes on how to edit and how to color correct and those types of things. And I started doing it for myself. And other artists started looking at me going, wow, who did you get to do this? This is great. And I'm like, I did it. They're like, what? Wow. Well, could you do that for me? And I'm like, well, okay. So I started doing it for like a musician and a juggler, and I'm doing it for them. And it starts becoming a bit of a going concern. And so I created a company, and we started doing marketing and corporate stuff. And I supported small brands, and I did stuff for the opera company, and it became like a whole thing all into its own. And under that umbrella, I wanted to do creative work. So I started to write and produce some short films that won some awards. I even produced a music video that has been seen at film festivals all over the world and really well received. And that was all kind of sprung out of that. And in my stage show, I showed short films, short vignettes, like a minute or less, in between magic effects, and to create a story throughout my show. So film was really integrated into my stage work, and it became all part of one. And let's face it, filmmaking is magic. It's just a different type.
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
You mentioned earlier in this conversation about how some magicians are utilizing social media and posting tricks or the behind the scenes thought process behind a trick. Like, how do you utilize social media for one? But then, how do you feel about the curtain being removed and taking people behind the scenes of your craft?
I'll deal with the second question first. And my opinion may not be entirely popular. And that's because, the argument to exposing magic through social media is that you get more people attracted to performing magic. That's kind of the argument behind it. But to me, that's just an excuse you say to get clicks. Like, if you want to get people to pay attention quickly, you expose something. You show behind the curtain, you show behind the scenes. It's a quick way to do it. It does get you clicks. It'll get you paid. But in my opinion, it has a potential of doing more harm than good, because, and this is the exact reason, this situation. When I was a kid, I'm just learning magic. I'm 9 years old. I go to my class to do show and tell. And I stand in front of that class and I perform a magic trick. And my classmates go, holy crap, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And that gives me a little bit of juice to like keep going, simple magic. It's not complicated, simple stuff, but they're amazed, and I keep going and I keep learning. Now that same kid gets up in front of their classroom and performs a simple magic trick. Every one of those kids are going onto TikTok to see how it's done. Every last one of them. And that kid, they're going to be going up to that kid at recess like, ha ha, I know how you did it, blah, blah, blah. Right? And now that kid, what's going to motivate that kid to go to learn the deeper stuff of the art form? I'm not worried about me. You're not going to expose anything that's going to disrupt my career at all. Like, I do really complicated stuff. It's multi-layered with so many different things, not just in magic, but like I said, in all these other stagecraft and theater portions. I'm not worried about me. What I'm worried about is that kid that wants to learn the art, like really learn it, wants to treat it like a craft and not just like a novelty. Well, social media kind of disrupts things for them. There's no putting the genie back in the bottle on this. It's out. Like, we're not going to solve this, but I won't contribute to it. You know, if I expose something, and I do expose the simplest of tricks, like I teach executives a simple trick that they could perform, right? I'll do that, but I'm doing it super intentionally and usually in a closed environment. I don't really put it out to the mass market for the reason I just explained. I'm respecting the people that are coming behind me. And I really believe that people want to learn our art, find it. I found it in the middle of freaking Canada. There was no magicians where I lived. None. There was frozen tundra and hockey, okay? And I figured out how to do magic tricks as a kid with no other influence helping me. If I could do that, I know there's other kids that would find it as well. The true people that would want to be artists will find it. So I'm of the opinion that it does more harm than good, the exposure, and I don't do it in my work online. The way I treat magic online, and this is an ongoing struggle for me because the simple fact of the matter is I get less clicks than the guy exposing, and that is a bit frustrating at times. But like, I still have 200,000 people on TikTok that follow me, right? And all I do is I perform magic and I tell stories around the magic by which I try to enchant people's imagination for just a moment without exposing how it's done. It's like when you watch how Star Wars is made and watch how they put little strings on TIE fighters and stuff like that, I suppose that's kind of fun. But with magic, it's really difficult to separate the string on the TIE fighter from the show that's being performed for you and instantly go, oh, I see the string because of the way the art is formed. So I just try to re-enchant people, bring them back to this moment of experience and wonder, to give them this kind of childhood wow. I'm not trying to make people feel stupid at all. I'm wanting them to feel amazing. So that's what I try to do online.
Okay. Yeah, great answer. And I agree totally. It's like all forms of entertainment, I feel, has been a victim of social media. Like comedians, they're not able to. Well, I feel like a lot of social media comedians have watered down that industry. I mean, broadcasting, there's a lot of hoopla over athletes coming on like ESPN and FS1 and taking jobs away from journalists that went to school. So, I mean, even music, obviously AI, there's fights going on to prevent AI records from being released that sounds like a certain artist. So I just think we're at a point where I don't know if we can stop it, but I mean it's disheartening to those, such as yourself that, have put in the work, the grind to perfect your craft and then, have it exposed or have those that are not as talented, basically take away from future generations.
Exactly. It is my fear. And I think we are, like the AI thing is a really interesting comment because, like, let's say you're a kid learning how to paint and you can punch 3 buttons and create an impressionist painting in 2 seconds that you could not even imagine painting because it's so much better than what you could do at that time. It may be demotivating. Now, at the same time, I do believe that we always run in cycles and that all of this technological disruption it's a big mountain right now, but it's going to even out. So my encouragement to the young magician or the young artist in any art form, whether it be music or physical mediums or anything like that, is still learn. Go find your audience because there's still audiences that want to see it. Like if you're a kid and you want to learn how to do magic, really, you want to get to a higher level and you can't perform it at school because all your friends are going to treat you like crap because they're going to go on TikTok and make fun of you. This may sound silly, but I'm serious. Go perform at an old folks home. You're going to have an audience there that is going to freaking eat you up with a spoon. They're going to love you. The people running that thing are going to love you. And you're going to be able to practice like crazy and do your magic and get better. and you're going to find your audience, because when you get good enough, you're going to be able to find tricks that you don't even worry about the social media people anymore. They don't even bug you, right? Yeah. And I also think that whether it's AI or the exposure of magic or anything in between, the general public gets bored of exposure. It's boring. Seeing how something's done is fun. It's a thrill for like 1 second, but then it's like, meh, you don't want to watch it anymore. It's boring. This is why all the exposure channels on YouTube or anywhere else, they get views and they peak, and then you'll take a look at their views. They'll get 1 or 2 videos that get like 2 million views, and then the rest of them get like 2,000 views, because nobody freaking cares. All they do is like, oh yeah, you're exposing stuff. Like, okay, well, there's a million channels that are doing this. The ones that are going to win, I really believe this, the ones that are going to win in the future are the ones that are human, and the ones that are still able to do analog skills, like what you're doing right now, talking to me like a human being, right? You could probably use some kind of algorithm to run a podcast, but you're not. You're being a human and asking me your questions. That is a skill that is that's going to take you far, because you're learning the analog skill.
Right. And I did an interview with one of my podcast friends in Australia recently, and we were talking about that. Like, you can utilize those tools. You can utilize AI to craft the interview, but you also have to have this innate ability to listen. And I like to use my curiosity to ask a question. So, for example, I'm going to ask you a curiosity question right now. And it's like, do you feel like your biggest struggle as a magician is, well, outside of being a magician, is people taking you seriously?
No, early in my career, yes. I've been doing it long enough, and most of my work now is for a very bespoke audience with Box of Wonders, and I also work a lot with corporations. So it's interesting. I actually help corporations think through creativity and utilizing AI. And I use magic as a metaphor because AI is magic. And so I literally go all over North America and talk to executive teams and companies about how to think creatively and magically about this new technology. And they take me very seriously because of my background. I have a very broad background, everything from filmmaking to my performance stuff. I've run my own businesses. I've been involved with major companies in helping them with their messaging and branding. And my postgraduate work was on involvement theory, which is very relevant. So I have this very broad experience level that allows people to see the value that I bring. At first, I think you're probably right. They're like, oh yeah, what kind of guy that does tricks? What can he teach me? Right. But I've got people that help me with that, smooth it over. And also, like, this is where media really comes in handy. This is why I do podcasts, because people meet me here and they're like, oh, okay, he's a credible individual. This is why I did a TEDx talk, because it lends credibility. And in fact, that's an encouragement I would give to anybody that wants to be a thought leader. Is you have to find core or pillar pieces of content that really let you shine in your area of expertise and allow you to be taken seriously.
Right. And you're also writing a book, or is it complete? Where do we stand with that?
Yes. So I wrote a novel. It's done. I tried to get an agent, and getting a literary agent is really hard. The traditional publishing industry they're very specific on what they want, and they don't want what I wrote, which is fine. I'm going to see if I could find an avenue to self-publish it, or maybe a different label to publish that on. I'm glad I wrote it because it inspired my second book. I'm writing a second fiction book that I think will be more in line with what industry is looking for now that I've learned, and I'm enjoying that. And I'm also just started writing a nonfiction book about the creative process, about the importance of dreaming, and that is going to be targeted specifically at business.
Great. So, what keeps you motivated and passionate?
I, 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 I think it goes back to that original experience I had at 8.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe my life's a gift. And when you've lived a while, you've taken some punches, and I've taken some punches, man. Like, I've been put on my can a few times.
Right.
And, there are times when you're sitting down there looking up at the spinning world going, do I even want to get up? Like, this is hard. Maybe I could just go get an easy job, something that isn't so difficult. But when the world stops spinning a bit, you take a minute and you breathe. You're like, yeah, but my life's a gift. Right. And I get to try to make the most out of that gift. And yeah, part of that is going to be disappointment and failure. But let me tell you, those mountaintops are beautiful. When you get to the top of the vista, when you've accomplished the thing you set out to do, and you look out over where you've just traveled, there's nothing like it. You see the beauty of the world unlike anything else. And yeah, you got to descend that mountain and try and climb the next one. But halfway up the next mountain, when you've slipped and fallen, again, you remember where you just were. I was on top of that mountain. It was beautiful. I will be on top of this mountain again. And you just keep going. And I'm going to listen, I am going to do this until they drag my wrinkled can off stage. I'm telling you, I will be 98 doing my thing, and they will have to literally get that shepherd's hook to yank me off and say, you can't do this anymore. You're not making any sense, because I love it so much. And then I'm being the old folks home, and I'm going to find somebody there, and I'm going to do it for them. Like, I love it so much. It's just so a part of me. I love telling stories. I love meeting people. I love connecting with them. It's just part of me. So it's so much more than just a job, right? It's who I am.
Yeah. Beautiful. What do you see when you look in a mirror?
Somebody that I'm like, I can't believe you're that age, dude. I don't believe it. But what do I see? I like who I am. I really do like me. I like hanging out with me. I like being in my head. I'm not a tortured artist. I take long, leisurely walks in my mind through the garden of creativity. So I like who I am. I always see room for improvement as an individual. Like right now, I'm actively working hard to get my body in shape. I've lost in the last couple of years. I've lost like 50 pounds, and I'm like putting on some muscle now. And I'm doing that because the character I play, even in Box of Wonders, the way I put it, is like a cross between, a really friendly guy like Mr. Rogers and James Bond, right? Mm-hmm. So my external persona is very proper. It's very strong. Like here, I'm going to give you the opening line to Box of Wonders. I'm going to give you the opening line. Okay. This is how I start. I come in, there's music playing, there's a single light down on the stage. I come in and I sit down, I put the box in front of me, and I very carefully straighten my suit, and I lean forward and I say this: I'm going to lie to you tonight, but I'm going to lie to you in a way that is most familiar. I'm going to lie to you like your memory lies to you. And in lying to you, I'm going to tell you the truth. Right? So that's the opening line, right? It's like full of like this meaning and like I need to look correct to pull off that line, right? If I let myself get a huge beer belly and, I'm not playing the part of the role of this strong, wise sage that I am on stage. So I'm always trying to improve how to be that character more for my audience.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful. What's next for you?
We're just really working hard on Box of Wonders, and on the corporate training I do is called asymmetrical corporate training. Because I provide asymmetrical creative pressure on the executive team to think differently. So that is the thing we're doing most. and I have a business development guy that's out in the trenches talking to folks and creating opportunity. And we're going to continue to do that. I'm going to keep writing my book. I create some stuff, like I have a YouTube channel, just some advice stuff there in the world of business. So I'm always active creating in those areas. I've got big dreams still. Like I still want to get back into film. I don't know when that'll be. I've got a couple scripts I want to produce. So I'd like to get back into that when I get a breath and I find, funding, because that stuff's expensive. And I have a different, I have a grand vision YouTube channel I want to start, but I'm just looking for the right time. Right now, I feel like I need the world to calm down a little bit. Like, I know that you're in America, and America's going through the election right now. And everybody is so intense about that thing. Like, having conversations about other things is really hard right now. So maybe in a year, I'll look at doing that YouTube channel where people are going to, like, whatever happens, hopefully they calm the intensity of that conversation down, and we could start talking about beauty again. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not disparaging the political conversation. I understand it's important, but you have to understand, for an artist, it's hard to get a word in edgewise right now, right? So, right. I got to just wait. I got to wait on that. And I continue to produce new magic, right? Like, I'm always thinking, I'm always creating new stuff. And my mentor I mentioned earlier, Jeff McBride, I talk to him every month. We work together every single month. He's still the man, and still such a huge part of my regular life and career, and we're always creating new magic. So it's great.
I mean, is there a trick that's eluded you that you're yet to master that you would like to?
I mean, there are some things that I look at and I don't do because I realize the work that it would be required usually it's skill based. Like, I do some coin magic, but there's some coin magic I don't do. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, there's some Japanese guys and some Korean guys that do some coin stuff that I love to watch, but I know the repetitions they put in to get one moment of that routine. And I'm like, is that where I want to spend the next 10,000 hours? Mm-hmm. No, it's not. It's not. Like, I mean, I love coins, but I don't love them that much, right? So there's different skill-based parts of the art form that have eluded me, but it's not because they are beyond the ability to learn it, but they're beyond my desire to put in the time to learn it, right? And the area of mentalism, which is like getting in people's heads, that's always evolving. Like, I get better at that all the time because it's just practice, but it's not a practice you could do by yourself in a closet with a mirror, right? You need to go be with people. You need to be around people. And I mentioned before, I'm living in central Mexico right now, and doing mentalism in central Mexico is very, very different than doing it in America. Very different. It's because people think different down here. Language, yes, but also just the way they process information. So you have to, like, do things differently. But, like, I still love what's known as manipulation, and that's what I did on stage, which is just pure skill. Like, here, I'll show you something. This is the world's smallest deck of cards. Do you see it?
Yeah.
I just add water. I feel better. Thank you.
Wow.
Like, that stuff I still love it. Right. Uh-huh. And that was my first love in magic, was manipulation. And I still love performing.
I mean, I keep trying to wrap up this interview, but you keep saying things that my curiosity has to ask a question. So, like, you mentioned how you have to, the way you do a show or a trick in the U.S. compared to Mexico is different. So is that the case? Like, wherever you go, do you kind of cater a show to Europe and Africa, and it's different in Australia? Like, tell me about that.
Um, Not so much material, but more energy, right?
Hmm.
Like the New York audience is very, very different than a Midwest audience, right? They clap different, they respond different. You're more likely to have somebody call out to you in New York City, like even like something, and that's I don't love that, so I have to manage that energy a little bit differently in New York. Box of Wonders being an exception because with Box of Wonders I make friends. Everybody becomes my friend really, really quickly, and I don't get any of that with that show. But the stage shows. I remember once I was performing in an inner city for like a charitable organization for kids that have never been to theater. And that was different because I'm in the middle of a routine to music, like all choreographed. And I'm going along, and these kids start talking to me in the middle of like this. I'm concentrating, man. And these kids are like asking me questions, because they're not used to live theater. They think this is TV where they could talk to it, right, or something. And so that was different. And this was really interesting. I was performing in the south of France. I was invited by this mayor to this festival, and I'm performing again. I don't speak French, so it's all choreographed to music. And I'm performing my heart out, man. Energy, boom, just my initial character is this dark character. I make fire appear in my fists, turn them into swords, and like it's all energy. And I'm doing this act, and this crowd is dead silent, like not a peep. I'm like going through my motions, and I'm like, they hate me. They hate me. I'm bombing in the south of France. They hate me. I'm getting so nervous. And I'm like over a minute and a half into my act, and not one clap, not a cheer, nothing. And then all of a sudden I hit this moment where I kind of like, just for the briefest moment, just kind of stop my motion, and I hear, and then I start moving again, and they go silent. I'm like, what the heck? So I keep going, and then I hit a moment in my act where I hit a pose. I go, pa-pa, and I open up. And I pause, and the whole audience erupts in applause. And I'm like, holy crap, they don't hate me. They're just polite. They understand variety theater. They've been going to variety theater their entire lives, and they don't want to distract me. They don't want to be rude. They don't want to step on one of my lines. They don't want to step on a moment. So they don't like in America, we interject energy at any moment. Any moment, if we see something neat, it's like, woo, we're cheering immediately. There, they were super polite, and I learned that I needed to hit applause cues in order to get applause from them. And now, what I learned from this was many, many years ago, this happened, but what I learned is I needed to incorporate that also in America, because America appreciates knowing now's the time to applaud. And so I incorporate these moments where I just pause and I open up and I look at the audience and let them know this is a good time. And fortunately they do applaud, because that would be awkward if just like it was crickets. But yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So now as we try to wrap up.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
No, this is great. That's why I had, questions, you're giving great answers, and, having my brain churn, and I think the audience is going to love this. But feel free to plug where we can find you. I'm sure you have tour dates listed, where we can see Box of Wonders. Like, where can we find you on social media?
Thank you. I'm on all the socials. My name, Derek Selinger, is the best way to find me on most of them. On TikTok, I'm The Magic Nation. My website is my name, DerekSelinger.com. Probably the best place to get meaningful content that might help your life will be YouTube. Again, my name, Derek Selinger. But follow me in any of those places. And if I have something like the YouTube channel I was mentioning earlier, if that comes up, it'll be mentioned where to find that. That's probably the best thing to do. As far as tour dates are concerned, I have no public tour dates planned at all at this time. COVID really changed a lot of things where I pulled back on my public offerings, my general public offerings. We are ticketed events, and 99% of what I do is private and corporate. But if you have, an event or a want to do a private thing, just look me up on my website and reach out to, if there's a form there, my business manager, I'll get back to you and see if it works out. And if it does, it'd be great to meet you.
All right.
Yeah.
I love it, man. Leave us with a parting shot. I mean, we didn't really touch on this at all because the conversation was so amazing, but just leave us with some words when it comes to chasing your dreams.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And actually, I'll encourage you to go and check out my TEDx talk. Again, just search my name, TEDx Cape May, and I talk about the importance of dreaming, because I really do think it's super important, and particularly once we've taken a punch to the face in life, we often stop dreaming because it hurts when things don't go right. But I think it's vital that we all continue to dream, that we all continue to press forward in life, to look to new horizons, not only because it's going to give you happiness and meaning in life, because I think it does that, but also because you're going to do something, you're going to discover something that nobody else has, and you're going to contribute that to your community and to your world. Like, you literally are a world changer. The question is, are you going to change it for the better or the worse? You know? Mm-hmm. And I really do believe that your life is a gift. So my motivating parting thought is, again, that 8-year-old kid having that realization of, my gosh, how amazing is it to be alive? And it's hard to, when you're in the middle of heartbreak or difficulty or struggle or financial issue, it's really hard to have that perspective, because you just see the problem in front of you. And this is the moment you got to pick your eyes up off the problem and notice where you are. Notice the world you live in, how beautiful it is, the people around you, how beautiful they are, the thoughts in your mind, the creative ideas, they're beautiful. See the beauty, embrace the beauty, walk with the beauty, and it's the struggle, the difficulty, the obstacle shrinks in your perspective, and you're going to be able to accomplish amazing things. I truly believe that. I truly believe it. And that's the thing I'd like to leave with folks.
Wow. That's how you wrap up an interview. Derek Selinger, master magician, former basketball coach, filmmaker, author, motivational speaker, dreamer. Thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you, LaTroy.
Yeah. And for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LaTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.